Hi everyone, I'm here to talk to you about Oversteer and Understeer. Now, this machine right here happens to be quite the understeer machine. But why do you need to know about Oversteer and Understeer? Most people just believe that it's for racing and racing aspects only, but I'm here to tell you that it affects your life too, and every other daily driver's life. So what is understeer and oversteer? They are two tendencies that a car can take when in a turn or corner. So maybe you have that friend who lost traction years ago and hopefully he's okay, or perhaps you have that one stretch of road that you really enjoy to take just a little bit faster. Well, I'm here to tell you that these tendencies are explainable and that all daily drivers should know about these tendencies. Alright, so let's start with the basics. The first thing I want to tell you guys about is an automobile's layout. Now, this picture you can find anywhere on Wikipedia under automobile layout. However, I'm going to use it as reference. So this particular layout is called a front-wheel drive layout. These are your drive wheels, and this is where your engine is mounted in relation to these drive wheels. The reason these cars are so important to cover these days is that according to Edmunds.com, over 70% of daily drivers today drive this particular layout of car. Now, I must admit that these cars are notorious for understeer, and these tendencies only arise due to a weight imbalance between the front and rear of the car. Now, for all intents and purposes, I'm only going to be covering the front-wheel drive layout and a rear-wheel drive layout with a rear-mounted engine, because they're the two extremes of these tendencies. However, in this tendency, understeer occurs much more prominently. The last thing I want to tell you about understeer is where you take a wider than intended line, and you lose traction in your front wheels first. Now, this holds true for all different layouts. However, front-wheel drive is the most prominent when it comes to inducing understeer. Why? Well, all of your main weight is right here in the front. So as you're coming around, let's say a right-hand corner, this weight wants to pull your car outwards. I'll come back to that and show you guys in a bit. For now, let's move on to rear-wheel drive. Alright, so now we're moving on to the rear-wheel drive layout. This, however, is a specific rear-wheel drive layout where the engine is mounted in the back with the drive wheels. Now, as you can see, and as I said before, since understeer and oversteer are due to the weight transfer between the front and the rear of a car, rear-wheel drives are notorious for oversteer and play off this very well. Now, oversteer is where you lose traction in the rear wheels before you lose traction in the front wheels, and it causes the car to spin inward instead of sliding outward like understeer. Now, rear wheel, of course, as I said before, has so much weight in the back that it's able to lose traction in the rear wheels first prior to losing it in the front. So hopefully this has helped your understanding. A front-wheel drive car is more likely to understeer, where a rear-wheel drive car is more likely to oversteer. However, I want to emphasize now that these terms are explanations that are very, very technical, and I'm just trying to put it in more simple terms so that you can understand and be a little safer on the road. Now, there are two other aspects I'd like to talk about. The first is something called power oversteer, which only occurs in the rear-wheel drive layout of a car. This is where a rear-wheel drive car can apply so much power to the rear wheels that the front wheels can't keep up, and so the rear wheels will lose traction, inducing oversteer, as we've learned. Now the other is lift-off oversteer. Lift-off oversteer is not pleasant, and actually, unless you're using it to your advantage, you probably should have failed driver's ed if you haven't done this. Now, lift-off oversteer is where you either hit the brakes very hard or lift off of heavy acceleration in a turn. This will cause oversteer. However, usually it's a very uncontrollable oversteer and you don't want to use it to judge where you're going. So in order not to end up like this poor Camaro here, there are ways to regain traction from understeer and oversteer. Now manufacturers claim that the way to regain traction from understeer is to lift off the accelerator and continue your turned line. So they claim that to be safer, but most experienced drivers will tell you that oversteer seems safer to them, because regaining traction from oversteer, not only is it a more controlled slide, but in this case, you must do what's called counter steering, which is turning into the slide for a short period of time and then allowing your steering wheel to regain and come back to its neutral position. Drifters and racers play off these tendencies all of the time, but awareness of these tendencies will help keep you safer on the road regardless of who you are.